Welcome back, fellas. In the last video we had been working on our room database and we had successfully added data to our database. So today we're going to read, update and continuously delete data from those databases. Now let's move on to our main fragment here. So in main fragment we have this view button, so let's add a click to that view button. View dot set on click listener, new on click listener. Again I'm going to replace this fragment here, .fm dot begin transaction dot replace r.id dot frame, that is the ID of frame layout, and I would like to take this view fragment dot add to backstack null and finally dot commit. Okay, now our flow moves to view fragment here. So in this fragment, let's see what components we have. Okay, we have a single component to display our data. So as mentioned here, we're going to do the same. Let's define it. Next view. Let me name it TV. View creator method. TV equals to view dot find view by ID r dot id dot text view. I guess what was the ID? Okay, it was result. So yeah, it was result. Now what we need to do to read data is that we have this database class, we have this database interface actually, where we have declared this method to read data. So this method is going to return a list here. So in order to receive it, we also need a list here. So let me go ahead and create a list. The type is going to be user and list equals to new array list. Okay, now all I need to do is put this value in this list. So main activity dot app database dot app database object dot read user. Okay, this is going to give my data here. So now let me insert a for loop. Integer I equals to 0, I is less than list dot size and I plus plus. So inside this I'm going to read each and every content and then bring in my data here. So let me name a string here, string data, and then what I can do is I can concatenate my data here. So data plus, let me also give it null, data plus list dot get position or I dot get ID. So this is going to be my first data here. Let me concatenate that with a line break. Again, list dot get I dot get name. Again, concatenate that with a line break. And finally, list dot get I dot get email, and then concatenate with two line breaks there, so that the separate data can be represented. So finally we need our text view, that is TV, to display our data. So TV dot set text, this is going to be our data here. So this is going to show our result. Alright, you can run your application, you can pause the video and you can run your application and check if your data is there or not. Okay, welcome back. So now we are going to work on our update. So we already have a main fragment. Let me open that. We've already used two buttons here, the add and the view button. Now let me work on update button. Update dot set on click listener, new on click listener. So let me main activity dot fm dot begin transaction dot replace r.id.frame, and then new update fragment. Again, add to backstack null, and finally commit. So again, our program flow is going to go to update fragment. Let me check out here what we have. So I have edit text for name and email, and also an update button. So let me define them. I have an edit text for name, email, and a button update. Okay, let me also give an edit text for ID here, so that I can update my values with ID, with reference to ID here. So enter ID. Okay, update fragment. Again, we also have an edit text for ID. So let me define them all below. And on view created, ID equals to view dot find view by ID r dot ID dot ktid. I have that for name, and also for email. Also, I have a button update. Okay, begin update, I guess. Let me see here. Update. Okay. Now let me place a click here. Update dot set on click listener, new on click listener. Like we did in our database add method or add fragment, we need to prepare our values first. So user u equals to new user, and then we are going to insert each of our value, that is set ID will be id dot get text dot toString. I think the id is expected as integer, so integer but parse int. Again, u dot set name is going to be name dot get text dot toString, and finally u dot set email is going to be email dot get text dot toString. So yeah, and finally we can call again our main activity dot app database object dot update data, and we can pass our parameter u here for user or for all our data representation. So when the data is updated, again our fragment needs to be replaced by our main fragment. Transaction dot replace r dot id dot frame, and it's going to be new main fragment. Okay, dot again add to backstack null, and finally commit. So yeah, now finally we have our delete fragment here at last. So let me check this layout. So I have an edit text for ID and a button here, so it's not so difficult here too. So let's carry it out very soon. Before that, we need to call our delete fragment from our main fragment. So in main fragment, delete dot set on click listener, new on click listener. We had that last button remaining. So main activity dot fm dot begin transaction dot replace r dot id dot frame new delete fragment. Again, we can add to backstack null, and then commit it. Now finally in delete fragment, we have an edit text here, edit text that is for ID, and we also have a button that is for delete. Inside on view created, we're going to define them. ID equals to view dot find view by ID r dot id dot ktid, and in case of delete, it's btn delete, and the ID component name is delete. Okay, now click on this delete button, delete dot set on click listener, new on click listener. Again, we need to call a function from this database access interface, that is this function which expects a user type data. So what I can do here is I can create an object for user again, user u equals to new user. So I can insert my id here, set id, that is id dot get text dot toString. Since it's expecting an integer, I can wrap using integer dot parseInt, and finally call main activity dot app database object dot delete data, and I can pass my user here or my u here. So after this, again I'm changing my fragment to my main fragment here. So fm dot begin transaction dot replace r.id dot frame, and then new main fragment. Finally add to backslash null, and finally a commit statement. So you can go ahead, run your application. All 4 operations in this application is complete. If you have any problems or if you're getting any errors, please do comment out below. If you like this video, please do like, subscribe, and wait for upcoming videos. Thank you.